Welcome everyone to my Wilds of Eldraine pre-release guide. This is what my channel is known for. I'm excited to announce that in addition to this guide, I will also be participating in the early access streamer event on Arena for the Wilds of Eldraine. It'll happen on August 31st at 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. I'll be live streaming over on Twitch using MTG_monster. It'll be a great way for you to see the cards in action from the set. I'll be drafting and playing sealed exclusively, answering your questions, chatting to you about the set in general. It's a great way to prep for your pre-release, and I highly recommend you heading over and checking that out if you have the time on that day. But let's go ahead and jump into this guide. The first thing you need to know about this set is that there's an Enchanting Tales card slot in every single pack. So you're going to have an enchantment in every single pack guaranteed. These enchantments are reprints from the history of Magic, and some are powerful and some are not so powerful. The usefulness in this set varies greatly based on the enchantment or synergies that you're going for. But any way you cut it, the enchantments really do want you to only play them if you have a deck that synergizes with them very well. Of course, there's a few exceptions to the rules with crazy good enchantments that are just win cons in and of themselves, but most of the time, they're just there to support what you're actually doing with the other cards from the set, and you're not going to want to put too many enchantments in your deck anyway. So be really selective in which enchantments fit in your deck, and really make sure that you are filtering out ones that do not go with what you're doing. Also, I'm sure you can see from all 63 cards that I'm showing you that there is a wide range of power level within them, so also, only play the good ones. I will go ahead and say that the red enchantments seem to synergize better with the set than any other color. So that means these red enchantments have better value overall because they have better synergies with what you're doing on the board. There is hardly a red enchantment from the Enchanting Tales that I would not put in my deck. Whereas black has some seriously strong individual enchantments, but be careful because as soon as you get away from those, the enchantments that are good really need you to have a deck that synergizes well with it for you to even be able to consider putting it in your deck. If you don't, they are unplayable. Same with white, just a few on the surface, very good, solid enchantments, but a few that you're definitely going to need to have a build around for you to be able to make them work or worth it. Blue has maybe the fewest usable enchantments, but the ones that are there are really strong win cons in and of themselves. So don't write off blue. I think if you get a very strong Enchanting Tale from blue, it's totally worth playing it. The green enchantments are a little bit of a mix and match where they help fix, they help ramp, but then end game is where the green is at for the enchantments. Think of these green enchantments in the set as amplifiers for what you're already doing well. You need to be making tokens for these to perform well, so really focus on that first and then make these your late game amplifiers. They're not necessary to win, but they certainly do help. And if you're like me, you're sitting there thinking, okay, yeah, there's these Enchanting Tales, there's an enchantment slot in every single pack. They're going to print a bunch of enchantment removal to counterbalance that, right? Well, maybe not. There are spells that do get rid of enchantments, but they're pretty sparse, which means the enchantments, once they land on the board, have a good chance of sticking around and keeping their value. White, black, and green are the only colors that have spells that can destroy an enchantment, and blue, the only way to destroy an enchantment is through countering the spell itself. So, I think especially in sealed, you can probably expect that your win con enchantments, once they hit the board, are going to stay there for a while and be pretty hard to get rid of, making them a pretty safe investment for your deck. Moving on to some other really important key mechanics for the set, let's go over Adventure. Adventure is returning. It's not a new mechanic, and it's really strong. The only thing new about the mechanic here is that they decided to incorporate 2-color adventures where the adventure is a different color than the main card. I don't feel strongly one way or the other about this. It's just okay. Fine. They're dual color cards now, okay. But you don't have to play 2 colors to play them. You can always just play the adventure side or just play the creature side. They're just a pretty flexible card. The adventures have a wide range of things that they can do, where they can create role tokens, they can create treasure tokens, they can destroy things, they can give you tempo, they can give you food. Their combat tricks as well, which is probably their best use. And then, there's also the flexibility that if you want to run the creature side out and not play the adventure, you can always just do that too. So they're just very flexible cards where you have a lot of options in what you want to do with them. Adventures in decks win games. So make sure that you have enough adventures in your deck because that value really does add up. All right, let's go over role tokens, a new mechanic for this set. Wow, that's what they look like on tabletop. I'm sure there's a perforated edge. Let me fix that for you. There we go. Much better. So, each one of these 6 auras are a colorless, permanent aura enchantment token. So if that matters for any of your trigger synergies, it qualifies as all 5 of those things. There are a lot of things that trigger off of those different categories, so that's important. Each role does a different thing as printed on the card. They're pretty self-explanatory. Every card really explains well what each role is doing. Roles have a multitude of uses in this set and can really be a win con in and of themselves with some of the other cards that are printed at Rare and Mythic. They also can just give you a little bit of extra value or boost throughout the game. There's just a lot of uses for these role tokens, and they really enable a lot of things no matter what color you're playing or what strategy you're going for. You can definitely argue that white and black have the most uses for the role tokens and do the most with them, but certainly green has a very large place for them. And also, don't be caught off. Blue has some of the best role token cards. Nerfing your opponent's whole army into a bunch of 1/1s at instant speed is pretty good. Pairing that in an Esper deck can create one of the most broken win cons in the format, but those are both mythic cards. It's probably not going to happen. So keep dreaming. And even red, that on the surface has no use for role tokens, can actually use them in some pretty creative ways. So let's dive into other uses for role tokens besides just enchanting a creature. Let's look at the last 2 mechanics in the set, Bargain and Celebration. Starting with Celebration. Celebration triggers an ability when 2 or more permanents enter the battlefield on your turn. Usually this is a pretty difficult thing to have happen before your combat phase, but role tokens do count as a permanent entering the battlefield. So if a role token and a creature enter before your attack phase, that will trigger Celebration. Do you need role tokens to trigger Celebration? No. There are plenty of other ways to trigger Celebration in this set besides role tokens. It just adds extra ways for you to do it. Similarly, Bargain really wants you to have some role tokens lying around because in order to bargain, you have to sacrifice an artifact, enchantment, or a token. Role tokens fit that bill, and usually you won't mind sacrificing a role token to get the added benefit of bargain value out of these cards. I expect bargaining to be pretty strong. So if these are all 4 of the main mechanics of the set, what do they all have in common? Yeah, they're pretty vulnerable to counter magic and bounce spells. So when you're playing this set, I really think you should start evaluating bounce and counters a little bit higher than you normally would because it can interfere and disrupt every single one of the main mechanics in the set. All right, let's get into some individual color analysis, starting with white. What does white want you to do? White is very straightforward in this set, and it really just wants enchantment synergies. It wants every creature to have an aura, an enchantment, a role token on it. The more enchantments, the better. And it has a lot of anthems and pumps to benefit you having role tokens or auras on your creatures. It cares about how many enchantments you have on the battlefield, and it has some pretty sweet win cons if you manage to have a few creatures with auras on it by the time these spells resolve. White also has a surprising amount of removal in this set, and so white X control is a viable build because white does have some of the important enchantment removal that's hard to come by. I do expect white to play out fairly well and consistently in this set. Moving on to blue. No matter what blue deck you're building with, it's going to be a tempo control deck. With at the heart of it, counter target spell magic, bouncing permanents, and tap downs. No matter what blue deck you're playing, those things are going to be very important if you're incorporating blue. There's also quite a few ways for you to draw some extra cards and get some card advantage in blue, no matter what color you're combining it with. So it's a good color. Most of the time, I feel like people will be playing blue, combining it with the fairies, and going into an Esper route where either blue-white or blue-black, some sort of flyer win con with uber control. But that's not the only direction you can go. Obviously, you could go with a blue-red deck. I don't think this spells deck is really a spells deck in this format. The spells deck in this format is actually more of an adventure deck where the instants and sorceries are coming from the adventure cost of spells, and then you're going to get creatures later, and it will definitely still care about creatures. And that's how it's going to push its damage through. Blue-green is also a color combination you can go for. I have mixed feelings about it. It's supposed to be ramp 5 mana plus matters spells, and with such an aggressive set, I'm not so sure that that's amazing to go towards. It'll be okay. It'll win some games for sure, but you have to have that ramp in place. And so blue-green, what you'll try to do is ramp, adventure, get card advantage, control, drop big things, and win. I wish you the best of luck in that. You could combine into a Temur wedge doing this, where you have a lot of adventure value and control and tempo. I think Temur is perfectly reasonable. If you want adventure, Temur's your place. Besides, blue has some pretty great uncommon cards that are just generically good on their own. And if you're playing blue, be sure to be on the lookout with some of those win cons and those enchanting tales that are just absolutely broken. Moving on to black. Black is a color in this set, let me tell you. It is extremely versatile. It has some of the best enchanting tales at Mythic. It has the only planeswalker in the set, and it supports and enables most anything you want to do. So it's a very flexible color that can be paired really easily with pretty much any strategy. Enough good things can't be said about the red-black aggro rat strategy. It looks really great. It has good support from the enchanting tales, and going wide and aggressive is always a pretty good strategy in limited. If you're going to go with white and black, the enchantments matter, sacrifice, control looks good too. You can also go wide there, get a lot of extra value off of the roll tokens, and it has some really good value with some graveyard recursion and other strategies. I already went over black-blue fairies, but yeah, I mean, they're a good deck as well for control and spell value with flyers. And then, black-green, the food token synergies, it's quite good. Especially with so many people probably trying to go aggro, the food tokens could be better than you would think. Because black is so versatile, it seamlessly fits into almost any build and will be pretty crucial for most 3-color decks. Black can bring in some much needed card advantage, life gain, removal control, and token creation. So it basically can do anything, all great stuff, any deck's gonna want it. It's a good color in this set. Moving on to red. Now red is an interesting color. It is by far the most supported color from the enchanting tales, and it has some of the best go wide win con strategies that you could ask for. It's a very aggressive color, and no matter what you're playing with it, you're going to need to be aggressive and you're going to be wanting to go wide. I believe red pairs best with black in making rats and doing the go wide synergies with that, with tokens and enchantments. You can even slip into Mardu, Jund, or Grixis for added benefits, added power, added synergies. Black-red base is going to be a powerhouse with the rat synergies, the pings for ones, the go-wide strategies. It has a lot of support and it's going to be very good. Red doesn't have to pair with black though. You could go ahead and do a red-white aggro build with a few celebration payoffs or enchantment payoffs. Red-green for power plus matters is also a deck. It could be okay, but it's probably going to fall a little bit short compared to the go-wide strategies that red could offer. So I don't know if green-red is exactly the archetype I would be first picking if I wanted to go into red. And then similarly, you could go red-blue, and we already covered that in that it's not really a spells deck, but it's a spells deck. It's more of an adventure strategy than just a spells strategy. Red most of the time is going to win from swarming the board, getting small pings for one here and there, and just out-aggro your opponent with huge buffs from enchantments potentially and huge benefits. So I see red pairing with white and black more often than any of the other colors, but certainly it doesn't have to just be those colors. Green in the set is a little bit awkward. It just wants to go big, ramp, make some roll tokens, make some food tokens, and then use a combat trick or two, get the value off of some adventure cards, and then slam a few big game-ending finishers. It doesn't have as much color fixing as I would hope for green in this set. So you don't have to play green for your color fixing, so what does green really offer if it's not needed for the fixing? At that point, we're really just looking at ramp. There's not a ton of ramp, but there is some, and if you're going green, you're obviously looking to just place the biggest creature on the board and win that way. If you can ramp off of it, I think you will be able to win some games with green. Because green is slow, this makes food tokens pretty important, so life gain will matter if you're playing green. I see green more times than not becoming a splash color for the end game enchantment synergies or benefits that it can give. Think of green as an amplifier of the other colors. A lot of the green plays are late game plays that will just amplify what you've already done successfully and make them even more successful. I feel like if you go into green as your base color, more times than not, you're going to end up in green-black food. And I think that's an okay place to be, as green-black food is pretty competitive. Almost all green decks are going to care a little bit about adventure in some way or some capacity. So definitely anticipate playing adventure spells when you play green. That's how you get a lot of good value in battle tricks. Food and adventure cards go hand in hand. Be on the lookout for artifacts. I think artifacts will definitely be included in most of your green decks. So let's talk about the artifacts. All of these artifacts are designed to go with food synergies and sack synergies. And like I said, most of the time you're going to be playing these with green and black. But that doesn't mean you have to be playing green or black. Be careful. There are treasure tokens in this set, and treasure tokens also trigger cards like Sir Ginger. So don't be afraid to go Jund. Don't be afraid to incorporate these artifacts into a red build. They can work there too. Lastly, the artifacts round out the set with a nice array of some fixing, with a few cards that help you fix and a few cards that do pretty well in almost any deck. So pretty solid artifacts overall. There's also a run of land mana sink creatures. I think in sealed, that's going to be pretty hard to incorporate into your deck. In draft, it's going to be okay, but it's not like amazing. It's more of a constructed card. They can win games though, so don't think of them as nothing, but they're not exactly the easiest cards to build around. Let's talk about fixing. With Evolving Wilds and the Prism at common level, these will enable you to be able to splash your 3-color plans pretty easily. So I do expect most people to be playing a 2-color base, splashing a 3rd, especially in sealed. This is not a 5-color set. That makes me kind of sad, but it's just not. It's not even really a 4-color set. You could stretch with a few adventures to that 4-color mark. Certainly, the Prism makes 5-color splashes possible, but even then, maybe it's not worth bothering to splash that far away for the extra value. I think you're going to find plenty of power within a 2-color base, splashing just a 3rd color most of the time, and I don't see much need to go beyond that. Remember when playing this set to be careful not to overload your deck with enchantments. I cannot say that enough. There are going to be a lot of enchantments circling the table during draft. There's going to be a lot of enchantments in your sealed pool. Be selective in the ones you use. You cannot play all of your enchantments in one deck, nor is it wise to do so. Make sure you really edit it down and are only using ones that really synergize with your deck very well and help you win the game. If it doesn't synergize well enough, it needs to be cut. And that's it for my pre-release guide for this set. Don't forget to join me for early access on Thursday, August 31st, 1 p.m. Eastern Standard Time, where I'll be drafting and playing sealed. It'll also be the first time I have a webcam and do a face reveal, so that should be pretty exciting as well. I will see you there, and thanks for your support as always.